All right. Oh, what happened? Welcome, family, to the Empower Hour Talk Show. I am Alkumar,
And I am Hanifa.
and we back right back at you. Like clockwork, each and every Monday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Facebook via Zoom, where we come to you with impactful topics of discussion that affect our everyday lives. This evening's discussion will hopefully not be so controversial. It might be for some. Um, Interracial relationships. Is that good or bad for the collective? And I want to first start off by, I think I owe both of you brothers that's joining us. Let me just say, first of all, who's joining us. Brother Jamal, DJ1, AKA DJ1, and Brother Demetrius. Thank you both for joining us in this discussion. But I think I owe you a bit of an apology because I thought about after I asked you both if you could join us on the program to talk about a relationship topic, and you both agreed. And then afterwards, we came up with the interracial relationship topic. And I thought about it. I said, I didn't even give them brothers an opportunity to say if that's what they wanted to come on this show and discuss. So I sincerely apologize if I threw you guys like a haymaker on this particular one. But what you
like
say?
Ray Charles used to say, "Sis, you got the right one, baby. Trust me.
Okay.
Trust me."
Yeah. So we're hoping that this topic won't be like so many others in our community where we take sides right down the middle, and some people is on a position of you should be able to love who you want, and the other side is you crazy, you fool, you a sellout, you a coon, and all the other things. And so I'm hoping, me personally, that we could meet somewhere in the middle in this discussion and dig into the root of it all. I was so grateful when my sister came up with Sister Hanifa, good or bad for the collective, because we be so in tune, she and I. And I was like, yes, that's perfect, because let's talk about it. Let's not decide one way or another for the whole community. Let's hash it out. So here we are. Interracial relationships, good or bad for the collective. Hanifa, you wanted
I
to.
wanted to just point out that the reason why I stayed let me just say welcome, Brother Jamal, welcome Demetrius to the Empower Hour. Demetrius, you have been here before, so welcome back to the Empower Hour. It's always a pleasure having you. And it is always an honor to host the divine masculine in this space, because this is a space of two women. So we always are looking for the brothers to enter in. So again, we appreciate you guys for giving us your time. I wanted to talk about why I focus mainly on the collective, because most of the times when we try to have this conversation, most of us are trying to have it from a very individualistic perspective, right? And because the idea is what I do shouldn't affect you. And that is not African and it is not true. And so that is why I wanted us to come from that angle, because I know somebody is going to come with, why do you care what somebody, you understand? So that's why I wanted to focus on the collective. And also, hopefully, we could touch on what that has done to the collective over the centuries as to how we have found ourselves where we're at today within our own community. So I just kind of wanted to give some context to the topic. So you could go ahead, Alkama.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Hanifa. Let's dig right in. And family, those of you who watching, we ask and we strongly encourage you to please share. Please share this stream now so that other people can join us live. Those who may not be aware of what we do every week, and they can join us and come in on the discussion, things like that. So if you could share this stream, we certainly appreciate you. And let us know where you are, who you are. Hey James, where you coming chiming in from? We'd like to know where you are in the world too, watching. Appreciate that. Hey Oni, um, good or bad? Let's just get a little synopsis of what you guys think when you hear the term interracial relationships. What is your first thought? What is your go-to? Are you cool with that? Are you totally against that? Let's talk about it.
You want to go ahead? I'm gonna let One Love lead on with this.
All right. So, well, first of all, we clarify what interrelational relationships is for this particular show before I go sharing my opinion and my research on it.
Okay.
Could we define what that is? And you two sisters, your opinion, what are we talking about when we say interracial relationships? And I gotta apologize because I'm a little under the weather. Unfortunately, I ate something earlier. My stomach was a little upset, so I'm drinking some tea and stuff and had to hydrate. But I'm good. But just letting y'all know. But please, could you either one of you kind of define in what context are we talking about interracial relationships for this show?
You want to take that, honey?
No, you could go ahead.
Okay. So for this show, any relationship with a black man or black woman, we're going to use the term black here for the sake of arguing, that who are dating or married or have children by outside of a black woman.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna say this to answer your question. Under the circumstances in which we are in as Black America, especially right now with the heightened era atmosphere of racial tensions, racial division, white supremacy, and disconnect within the Black community, between Black men and Black women, Black families, the oppression that we're facing, the ills that we have been suffering from a bombardment of assaults from all different angles, including the prison industrial complex, the neglect from our government, neglect from within our own community, the fractured households. I would say that it is not good for the collective of our community. And I say that being honest and realistic about it, not just, you got to clarify with folks because, people get emotional and stuff. That doesn't mean that is wrong. But if we want to talk about what is actually good for the collective right now, Black people, Black men and Black women need to get together and strengthen themselves. That, rest in peace, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing used to say, when you enter a relationship, that becomes your bunker mate in the war. And so you got to consider that. Now, I have plenty of family members that are in interracial relationships, married, some, Black men married to women of other colors, mostly white. We got to talk about that as well. And some Black women that are married to men of other colors, mostly white. We got to define that. But overall, I would say right now, the timing is bad because we are so fractured as a community, and interracial relationships, even though they're not wrong, they're not something that we need right now because we're not strong enough as a community, as a household, as on the streets, as a family. But I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just telling you, if you ask me my opinion, I'm gonna tell you that it's not the best thing for us right now, flat out.
Okay, Ashe, we hear that loud and clear.
I have a follow-up question once Demetrius addresses it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So, Jamel, he covered a lot of the things that I would say, but mainly, I definitely disagree with interracial dating because of the premise a lot of times why we do it. And the main reason why we do it is because we're frustrated with each other. But we don't get into the frustration. You know, we'll say Black women are like this, but we don't get into why Black women are like that.
Right.
We say Black men are like this, but we don't get into why Black men are like this. And if we get into that, we will understand each other better, and then wouldn't go run to the very people who is causing that problem and that division between us. So that's why I totally disapprove of it because we're running to get away from each other, but we're not dissecting why this woman has an attitude to where we feel like we're gonna go run to the white woman because she's submissive. The white woman can be submissive, but why? The Black woman has an attitude, why? You got to dive into those reasons why we don't do that. We just dismiss it and say, oh, that's why I'm with a white man. But that's why I'm with a white man, because the Black man doesn't protect me. He doesn't respect me. You know, he's not financially stable, all the other reasons. But the reasons why those things exist, and nobody likes to say it, but it's because of systematic racism and white supremacy. Right. And we have to really dive into it. So that's my position.
That's right.
Demetrius, you touched on something really profound there in saying that oftentimes the reason, and I think the reason, the people that you're talking about is the people who would say things like, when something happens, this is why I'm not with a Black man, or this is why I'm not with a Black woman. You specifically spoke to the frustration that we have amongst ourselves that's causing a lot of us to kind of go in that direction. But Brother Jamal, you said something that just my antennas went up, and I had to do a follow-up question to this. You said now is not a good time. And my question to that is, when has it been a good time for Black people to date interracially? Has there ever been a good time for that?
No. Plain and simple. No. I mean, I'm just be honest about it.
Okay.
And that's the issue that we have with Black people not understanding the circumstances that we are in. Honestly, since we've been here, since the encounter with the Europeans and their invasion and colonization of people of color, in particular Africa, it has not been a good time. And it's not because of us. It's because of the things that they have done. And this is to echo what Demetrius was saying. We have to talk about what they have done to us, not what we have done to us, because what we have done to us has been a reaction to what they have put us in. You know, you put crabs in the barrel, and then when they start pulling each other down, you say, see, crabs in the barrel. Well, the barrel is not the crab's natural habitat. And we don't talk about, well, who put the crabs in the barrel? You know, and so when the crabs act the way that they do, we blame the crabs for acting the way that they do, but the crab is supposed to be out in the open ocean and in the sea. So we don't talk about those aspects of it. And all too often, we've seen the pointing of fingers, the division that I spoke of earlier. And right now, it is at its worst. I'm going to tell you right now, and I've been studying this for quite some time, and Brother Demetrius has been with me at times where we've gone out and observed and studied interactions. And we have seen the fracture just get bigger and bigger too. It's like a break right now within the Black community between Black men and Black women when it comes to the perception of relationships for each other. What I mean by that is that we used to, prior to desegregation coming in, when we were segregated, we had a stronger community, plain and simple. You know, you can talk about, you know, whether desegregation is right or wrong. We're talking about, was our community stronger? Did we have two-parent households? Did we have generational wealth that we were building? Did we have a community? Absolutely. And we don't have that right now because of the things I spoke of early, mainly because of what white supremacy has done to us systematically. But prior to that, we were stronger, and Black love was stronger because we had understanding. We're all we have. So the Black woman and the Black man were a team. They weren't like, you know, oh, I can easily just go and get me a white man or a white woman, and we didn't even consider, you know, going outside of, you know, Asian or Arab or things like that. But now, under the illusion of what we call inclusion and freedom, we have we've gotten comfortable with the little bit of things that we have. So it becomes easy to say, you know, I'm dating this sister, and she's got, as Demetrius said, she's got an attitude, or she's always frustrated. You know, she just, you know, she want this or she want that, and I'm just a brother that's trying to do my thing. I don't want all that. And then I go, and I've literally heard men, black men in my life say, I got a white girl now. And plenty of sisters, especially right now, and this is a new thing. And when I say new, I'm saying in the past 10 years, where the whole new thing is to date white men. That's why I said we need to define what we're talking about with interracial relationships, because when we talk about interracial relationships as black people, we're actually talking about dating white.
Mhm.
We don't really consider Asian,
Mhm.
Latino,
And I
or
want
Arab.
to get
No,
into
it
that.
becomes
I'm glad
white.
you brought that up, because that was one of my questions too. Why is the anger a lot of times so much more seething when it's black on white versus black on Mexican or black on Indian? But before we get into that, I did want to come back around, loop around. You had said, what has white supremacy done to us to have for our relationships to be so divided? And Demetrius, maybe you can jump in here and kind of elaborate on that a little bit deeper if you care to.
Well, oh my bad.
For those who will say things like, stop blaming the white man. We blame the white man for everything. And white man ain't got nothing to do with why I'm divorced, or you know what I'm saying? So break that down for us a little bit as to why that is. Why is systematic white supremacy a great cause
Right.
of our relationships being so much in dysfunction these days?
Well, one is the definition of love. You know, they have given us the definition of love. They've given us a definition of romance. So we go off their definition. How can you have romance and love in the ghetto or under impoverished situations? How can you?
You mean that? Wait, let me just be clear. When you
Okay.
say, how could we have romance in? Okay, you mean their version of romance? How
Exactly.
can that exist
Right.
in the
So,
ghetto?
right. So,
Okay, I just want an in poverty,
yeah.
because there's still love. You mean their version?
Well, right. It's still love, but what we consider love to be, for the most part, is based on that definition, and that's why that's where the frustration lies. If it doesn't look this particular way, if it doesn't look like it's on how they show it on television, if romance isn't based on what is shown on television, based versus what I can actually produce based on my situation, and even with success, and even raising children. So these are the things that play a part in our households, and that creates frustration amongst Black men and Black women, because what we look at them as success and love, you know, romance and going on a family vacation and things like that, when a Black man can't meet those requirements, it creates a problem with the Black woman, and it just leads into different directions. I'm cool with private school, but how many of us can truly afford private school? And we have those discussions. That'll turn into an argument. So it's a lot of things, obviously, that plays into a part that while we get into it with each other. But to keep it kind of simple with the love thing, what we define love to be is based on what they say it is. But in the Black community, I mean, with the things that Black men have been through, haven't been to therapy and things like that, our perception of love is totally different. I mean, can you truly love if you haven't had both of your parents? Can you show that real affection, that real love, when you already are in an imbalanced situation? So these are things that have to be taken into account when you're dealing with a Black person. You got to look at their background in a way that maybe a white person may not have. But that is who a lot of times we're judging what love is, if that makes sense.
Okay. I as you were speaking, I kept hearing like a lot of the love, or the definition of love that is portrayed on television, is deeply rooted in access to resources
Exactly.
and wealth.
Right.
Uh,
Exactly.
your, uh, I would even say six-figure. I would say your boo that's making $100,000 working for the federal government or whatever is not flying you out for the weekend to Paris. Okay, and if he does, you guys are probably going to live on oodles and noodles for the next 6 months. I'm just saying. And so when you mention that, I'm just like, I think there's like an unrealistic expectation that we take on. And so as you said, I'm like, yes, because love, the love that you're talking about when you say hood love and love in poverty, that's to say that places that are impoverished, people don't experience love, and they do.
Mhm.
But the frustration, that I'm just reiterating what you're saying, what I'm hearing you saying is that the frustration comes from you are now trying to recreate a love, right? That is portrayed, but that love that's portrayed is deeply rooted in like a certain economic status or access
Absolutely.
to resources. Okay.
And even in the, even in our and even with a lot of our circumstances that we find ourselves in, for instance, you know, you have a lot of men that live off women. Now, are they in love with the woman, or are you in love with the woman because she's taking care of the situation? And a lot of things like that happen in the Black community. We depending on each other. We we trauma bonding and things like that. How can you really define love when you've been through all kinds of trauma? So am I with you because I love you, or am I with you because we trauma bond? You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
that these are a lot of things that go on in the hood or in the Black community that we don't. So love and things like that, it's like, can we really participate in it in a sense that the Europeans say, if we have not been through therapy, or the fact that the things that we have been
Yeah.
growing up.
Thank you for that. That's another good point about the whole trauma in our and how that relates to our relationships. But Jamal, I have I'm gonna bring you in, and I'm thinking as I'm hearing y'all talk, the whole social construct, in this society, it's European. You know, everything is European. We speak English. We're not English people. We have English names. We're not English people. You know what I'm saying? We wear clothing. I mean, you go down the line, the whole to schooling, everything is constructed socially to fit an European culture. And
Exactly.
here we are as Black people in this construct, attempting to be love one another in relation to another people's construct, another people's culture. So that's a whole nother topic of discussion. But come on, Jamal, bring us in on what your point is.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take the baton from Demetrius on this and carry that. He's absolutely about that. The construct of what they define love as, that has been pushed upon us, is not it's not suitable to us in this circumstance that we're in. Plain and simple. It doesn't realistically apply all the things that we got to go through, and we try to mask it. We try to adapt to it, and that's human nature. But you have the upside window effect that the Koreans used to use in the war when they would capture soldiers, and it's like plain and simple. If you hang somebody upside down long enough, looking outside a window, that upside down becomes right side up to them. Their brain adjusts to it, and it's still upside down outside, but their mind starts to adjust to it, just like when you smell a really bad odor, after a while your mind blocks it out. That's what we have been doing as Black people in America, because we've been masking out that pain and that window that is upside down for us. But to get more specific, let's talk about, when we talk about the system of white supremacy and what it's done to Black America, let's go back to the last time when we saw Black households on the regular. That was back in the 60s. Okay, my mother's generation was the last generation where it was the norm to have two-parent households. Okay, then here comes in the 70s, you have Rockefeller drug laws, crime laws, and then you start to incorporate unemployment starts to skyrocket when we have desegregation. Unemployment starts to skyrocket for Black Americans, in particular for Black men. And that's important to understand, because prior to desegregation, when there were a lot more employment for Black men, because we had black schools, we had black hospitals, we had black movie theaters, we had, yes, they say all black everything. And I just did on my show last week, we were talking about the Negro Baseball League and how important it was to the black community. And my cousin Sean Gibson talked about it. And those that don't know, my great grandfather's the Negro Baseball League and baseball Hall of Famer Josh Gibson, the home run king. We were talking about the importance of the Negro Baseball League to the black community across the country and how that was the third largest business for the black community, second to only Madam C.J. Walker and black insurance companies. So when they came to town, they helped flourish the black community. So when they came to D.C., U Street got lit up. Howard University and all that got lit up, and everybody came into the community. So everybody had these jobs. When that left, when Jackie Robinson left and the Negro League was disbanded, all those jobs left with it, meaning a lot of those men and women didn't have that money. Now, where are you going to get these jobs from? You got to go and run and ask some white person for a job. You know, Dr. Claude Anderson talked about it in his many times in his book Pyronomics, how his family had a black bus lines. But when segregation ended, black people want to ride the white bus. Hundreds of buses now are gone. That business is gone. So now you replace those jobs, and the men need jobs to provide for their community and for their family in particular, you know, for their wife and their children. You replace that with welfare and WIC, Section 8, you know, things like that. But on top of that, you make the rules that, well, the woman can get these things, these government assistance, but that man can't be in that house. Okay, so now we got a division right there. There's a fracture right there because now she needs to be, her maternal instincts take over. I got to take care of my children. But he's telling me, let's be specific. He, white man, white supremacy, is telling me he will take care of me, give me these things, and I don't see any other way to do it, but my man can't be there. So now there's animosity because she still wants the man to be there. And that was like in the movie Claudine, James Earl Jones and Diane Carroll, you know, but you saw what that created, the division. Now, you fast forward to the 80s, and we're still talking about white supremacy. These laws are changing, and here comes crack. Here comes the war on drugs, all right? Incarceration rate for black men from 85 to 2004 escalates 500%.
Let's not lose sight of how crack got into the community.
Right, and that's my point. The crack came from them, the guns came from them, the violence came from them, the unemployment came from them. So then the need, I would say the need to find money from a lot of black men and some black women, but mainly black men, when you took away the jobs, and next you know, somebody's coming in here saying, hey, you can make a couple grand tonight selling this. All right, we know what that did to the black community as far as the crack and the devastation, but the incarceration rate skyrocketing 500% in less than 20 years, 500%. You're taking black men out of their homes. You're taking fathers, sons, uncles, nephews, cousins out of the community, putting them in prison. Prison is a horrible place. Now, these women are having to fend for themselves. They're having to raise these children by themselves. Now they're having to go and work 2 or 3 jobs. And now the kids become latchkey kids. Now she's also getting some animosity because she's being reactive because she doesn't understand that we've been at war, which is why I said it's never been a good time. She just wants to do what any human mother wants to do. Make sure her children are safe. Okay. So I'm not blaming her. What I'm saying is the circumstances that are at hand, we haven't had time to actually respond. We've only been reacting to what happens to us. And so for the next 20 years, we have crack and then marijuana laws and high unemployment rates, you know, skyrocket in cities like my hometown of Pittsburgh or Buffalo or Milwaukee, where unemployment is for the last couple of decades been at 50%, hovering around here for black men. And yet they're telling us when you watch a Jared commercial, when Valentine's Day come around, this is what you should be able to do for your woman. And the black men are like, I can't afford that. That love that Demetrius was talking about under their construct doesn't fit our circumstances because we're at war. Yet you're telling us we should be able to live the life of Raleigh. We should be able to have everything that they put on the commercials. And so then once again, there's more animosity. So white supremacy breaks that up. And then, you know, and I'm gonna say this and be blunt, and because I love black women. A lot of black women didn't realize they purposely started giving them jobs and denying black men jobs on purpose, because they are smart enough, because they study us and we don't believe they study us. There's all types of institutes. There's over, I think, 1,000 different brain storming institutes that study behavior, especially for black people. If I give her the job over him, what's going to happen between the two of them? And Demetrius, we talked about this so many times. It's a whole different attitude when a woman has her, be able to provide for herself and the man can't. I've experienced it in my own situation. And this is not a generalization. We're talking about circumstances that they study. It's not every single situation, but they're like, we're going to include her, but we're not going to include you. You talked about, Sister Hanifa, you talked about going to Paris. Black men don't want to go to Paris. Black men don't want to go hiking. They don't want to go zip lining. They don't go skydiving, none of that stuff, because they don't feel safe in those circumstances. They don't feel welcomed in those circumstances. I remember I was listening to the show 1A a couple of years ago with Joshua Johnson was on there, and they were talking about that. And here he was a gay black man. And he was like, I don't feel safe going into those spaces as a black man. So we don't feel included in those circumstances because we're not. Me and Demetrius have seen this plenty of times. We walk into spaces, they don't want us there. They don't want us there, but they'll want a woman there because they're not threatened by her, and we have to talk about the truth about those things. This
So
is what
I wanted to
together as a black community, black men and black women not having our coffee diluted, our minds diluted into, thinking that we are welcome into the white community, because we have to be on the same accord, as Dr. Frances Cress Welsing would understand. There's a lot of sisters that do understand that, and they're like, I know what they're doing. My mother is one of them. She would sit there and say, my mom hasn't worked a job. She hadn't worked a job in like 20 years, but she could apply and get a credit card. My father had been working all his life. He couldn't get one. And she watched me and my brothers and so forth, the same thing, not be able to get loans or whatever the things that we need to provide for our families or for ourselves, but she could get one. And she's like, ain't these people a trip? Yeah. They want to make sure that I don't get these things. I mean, that me, myself, but my mother or the women can get them, because they know it creates frustration and division within our community.
Go ahead, honey.
Oh, okay. So it's very clear that both of you guys are answering the question as to, is it good or bad? And you guys, I'm hearing you all say it is not a good idea. So I want us to delve a little deeper into why it is not a good idea. I want us to go a little deeper as to like, why not? Like, you're going to have people who says, you can't help who you love. You hear that a lot. I'm not going to sit around and wait for black men to get their stuff together. You hear that?
Yes.
I have a right to be treated a certain type of way, right? Yes. There's one floating around that's becoming popular. Black woman deserves luxury too, and they don't like if you that's
yeah.
And what's the word? Hypergamy. Yeah. That's a lot of groups that's being formed around that, and really they're not being truthful in what they're saying, because when you go and you listen to these groups, it is not focused on the black man. No, it's not. When they're talking about luxury and all of that, those are just words to cover your disdain towards and frustration towards the black man. It's just a real fancy way of saying, forget about the brothers, right? Yeah. So I want us to get into why it's not a good idea for us to be mingling. And again, we're talking interracially, and I know Alkama, you're gonna get to the other side of that, but I know Jamal, you brought it up and saying, when we talk about interracial, let's be honest, we're talking about white-black relationship.
Yes.
Why is that not a good idea? And I might know why, but I want to hear from you guys.
Well,
let Demetrius get in here.
Well, I was just gonna say, like Millie Fuller Jr. said, every time you get up from laying with that white woman, you think that racism doesn't exist. You know, after you wipe that blonde hair out your eyes, you don't think racism exists because you laying with this white woman. You know, oh, it's not that bad if you hanging out with white people, or you laying with a white woman, or you laying with a white man. You slowly start to think that racism isn't that bad. And that's only sexual. That's a sexual relationship, because like David Chappelle got a joke when he says the white guys are talking, and he said they asked what his political affiliation is, and the guy says, "Man, don't ask me no personal question like that." So then he goes in. So last night I was sleeping with my wife, and this is what happened. You know what I mean? So he was basically saying he'll talk about that, but he won't talk about this. So white people they'll lay with you, you know, on a sexual tip, but they won't be honest about racism. They won't be honest the way it is. And after laying with white people sexually, we get to thinking the same thing. That's why I just don't think I don't think it's a good idea.
And introducing children into that too.
I was about to say, that's
more.
I got some stuff for that. Ooh.
Another point
Yeah.
I was bringing up.
That complicates it even more. It's like one thing to say you're having sexual, but once you introduce children into it, it becomes a whole different scenario.
But you know, even with that, you know, a lot of people know if you have an ambiguous, biracial looking child, then in some regards they can make it in the world a lot better than if you have a dark-skinned child, especially if the person is dark-skinned. You have some people, and you see a lot where you have a dark-skinned person with a light-skinned person, just within our community. But then you have it'll go a step further where you have someone dark-skinned that just want to be with a white person to kind of to dumb down, you know, breed out that color a little bit and get a lighter child. So you got a lot of that going as well.
And I just want to also inject that one part, another side of that, what you just explained, it's not even always about breathing out. And I'll come out, you know how I feel about this. I just don't think that we understand that we cannot continue to move into certain neighborhoods because of close proximity to whiteness, because whiteness equates in this country that better. So you move your children, you send them to their schools. Your child is like the one of the two black, like people are like proud of that, right? By the time you talk about years of that type of education, and by the time they reach college, now they go to a PWI, okay, and they come out and now they're young adults, and you're surprised that, because I know people who are in interracial relationships, and the issue, they met in higher education, like doing their masters at, you know, like a PWI, and it wasn't people who hadn't dated black men, they had, you know, but they say the higher up you go, the number of black people that you are in, it becomes smaller, right? And so I think that there are a lot of black children out there who are growing up in those spaces. All their friends are white. All, you know, eventually it's almost inevitable at that point, right? That somebody's going to link with this other race. Like it's almost inevitable. So I think that's a part of the conversation that we don't like to talk about. And that's why I struggle when I hear people talking pro-black, but when I look at where they live and look at where they send their children to school and all of this, like to me, it just doesn't align, because I'm just like, you're adamant about, I want my child to have a good education, so they need to go to that school over there. And yeah, they're the only black child in the school, but so what? And I'm just like, but you're pro-black. Like, it's so confusing to me. So I just wanted to kind of inject that in the conversation, that there's also another side where there's some black people who we're seeing, the people who are pushed before us, right? As the example of pulling yourself up from your bootstraps, right? The people who are forced on us, who have the white wives and the white husbands, well, look at them. Jamal was talking about using strategy, you know, and one of the ways, in, like you said, jobs are opened up to us and closed to our men, right? Which creates because you hear black women say all the time, if I could do it, if I went to school And I was raised in the hood too. If I could do all of that, then he could do it as well.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
But it's like the same thing that they do, where it's like, well, this person, you know, they push these people before us, the exceptions, right? The
Yeah.
exceptions. Look at them. So white supremacy isn't the issue. The issue is you. You don't want to pull yourself up by the bootstrap. So
Right.
I wanted to inject that because there are some of those people who come up in those spaces and they're
Yeah.
surrounded by those people ever since they're little children, because their parents live in those suburbs and they go to those predominantly white schools, and then those predominantly, what do you think is going to happen? And those are some of the people we're dealing with.
And another thing too, just to add this, when you're a Black woman married to a white guy, it's hard to even mention race, even if it is an issue, versus when you're a Black man dating a white woman, because you can't escape it at all being a Black man, the way you can to some degree escape it being a Black woman.
Yeah.
On top of, if you try to bring it up, you're sleeping directly with the oppressor. So you definitely can't bring it up to him because he's the one that's doing it. Now, the white woman, to some degree, she was oppressed. So it's somewhat, we can relate to some degree, but still, you being a Black man, you could pretend that racism doesn't exist, but when you get pulled over and you got this white woman in your car, you may have a problem, or you at least think you might have a problem. But if you a Black woman and you get pulled over with your white husband in the car,
Yeah.
you're not thinking that you're going to get handled because you with this white guy. You feel protected, actually.
Good point. Good point. And family, if you guys are watching, you tune into the Empower Hour. We go live every Monday, 8 p.m. Go ahead and like our channel, the Empower Hour Talk Show, right there on Facebook. So you can get your chime when we go live next week. We come to you with these type of impactful topics of discussion, civilized discussions that impact our everyday lives. Jamal, go ahead, jump in. You had something to share?
Yeah. So, to answer Sister Hanifa's question, it's plain and simple in the answer that we are not strong enough. We are not together enough. We're not solid and cohesive enough as a Black community. Because remember, the question we're talking about as a communal standpoint, not an individual. Individually, plenty of people are fine. They can get along. Plenty of Black men and plenty of Black women are doing fine themselves, as far as career and things like that. But as a community, we are not strong enough right now. We are still having a difficult time accepting that America is still racist as all hell. Right now, in the past 8 years since the death of Trayvon Martin, rest in peace, and happy belated birthday to the brother, and Sandra Bland and everybody else in between, we still have a lot of Black people, let alone white people, still accepting that America is as racist as it is, and that it is so deep and so systematically racist that we can't escape it. And so this is why you have a lot of people that have been traumatized by seeing a George Floyd or Ahmaud Arbery, or like I said, Sandra Bland, Eric Garner, these situations when we see them on video. Now, if you were aware as a community, which we should be, we wouldn't be shocked, as Dr. Welsing would say all the time. Quit acting all shocked when you're seeing the same thing happen over and over again. But we keep going, oh my God, I can't believe this. We've seen it over and over. Philando Castile, all these others, Tamir Rice, we've seen it on video, and we still have a difficult time accepting it as Black people because we have been so disillusioned and so, what's the word? We've had our attention diverted and distracted by the inclusion of a Jay-Z and Beyonce, at the White House. See, Oprah, see, these basketball players, these football players, as y'all were just saying, a few of them make it, there's no excuse. So we, and some of, because we can get a credit card and we can consume in this capitalistic society, we assume that we have been accepted, that we've arrived. Back in 2008, on U Street, was doing my show. This was before Barack Obama got elected, when he was running for president. Demetrius was there. I said, if Barack Obama gets elected, brothers and sisters, it was an audience probably about 50 people. I said, things are going to get worse for us. The majority of people in my show were like, no, it's going to get better. We've arrived, we've overcome, racism is a thing of the past. I said, y'all don't know what we're up against then. And if you don't understand that, if you can't see that, then you are not ready as a community. You're not ready to go outside of your race, because you still got your own home that you got to take care of. You have a foundation that is all messed up. It's got cracks and it's uneven in your household. You got doors and windows that are at angles instead of sitting upright, and yet you're trying to go outside and take care of other people and intermingle with other people.
Okay, well, let me inject this. Let me ask this then, because, and then Stream, we coming to you. I see the Stream is on fire tonight. It's a very popular discussion. People who will say, well, isn't that helping to close the racism gap? When we intermarry, isn't that coming together, kumbaya, helping everything, things?
That's a delusion.
Yeah, if interracial relationships actually worked, I mean, we would have $1 million in our bank account for reparations. I mean, no black men would be getting shot. I mean, because we've been laying in the bed with each other for a while.
Yeah.
So if laying in the bed with each other was the answer, we would have been out of this situation a long time ago. And that's really that simple.
Let me say this.
Being in the bedroom with each other is not the answer, because we've been doing that and we still talk about the same things.
Let me say this to answer that question, Alkamar. I about 5 years ago, I met this sister. I was down at the Power Networking Conference in Dallas, Texas. And I met this sister that was sitting at the same table with me in the ballroom. And I don't remember how we got on the conversation, but, me doing what I do and who I am, we're talking about my show. I think that's what it was. And I was telling her how there has been an actual campaign to recruit Black women, to encourage and market to Black women to be with white men. And I started breaking down that campaign. And she said, oh my God, when I started giving her examples of movies like Something New and all these commercials back then that I was noticing, when me and Demetrius would walk down U Street and we would walk down and we would see sisters with white men, and you started seeing a lot of it. I said, there's an actual campaign to push Black women to white men. She said, I fell for it. She said, you are so right. She said, I fell for it. She said, I remember that movie. And I said, ask yourself this question. Would Hollywood have ever made a movie in which a successful Black man, good looking, got a going on career, would sit there and say, I can't find a Black woman that meets my qualifications or my standards or the things that I like, just like what Sister Hanifa was saying, what some of the Black women say. And therefore, I'm going to try a white woman. And then it works out. Would Hollywood make the movie? The answer is no, plain and simple. They would never do that. They would never throw. I'm sorry. Let me flip that. If there was a white woman who said that was successful, Julia Roberts or whoever,
absolutely,
was doing well for herself and said, I can't find a white man.
Good point.
I got it going on. I'm beautiful. I'm fun. I love to do things. I can't find a white man. Let me try something new. Let me try, a brother. Let me try Demetrius. Let me try Idris Elba or something like that. Will Hollywood ever make that movie? Heck no. They would never do it because they would never throw themselves under the bus. So the sister was like, oh my God, you're so right. Now, this is going back to what y'all were just talking about, the children. She said her son, at the time, he was 10 years old. And this was right after Tamir Rice was killed. All right. And we had already seen Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown, rest in peace. She said her son came to her and said, Mom, why did you have to marry a white man?
Wow.
That was her dad. I mean, his dad that she was talking about.
And I want to get into that. I want to get into what happens to the children in these dynamics. And I know this is people, I know this is going to be very uncomfortable for a lot of people out there. Our dissonance come into play in situations
Yes.
like this, and because I could only imagine if I was in a predicament with a white man and had a baby, and somebody is telling me that, what I'm saying, what I just did was harmful to my seed. I can only imagine
Right,
how
yeah.
defensive I would
Exactly.
be from
Right.
that. But let's try to, not, what I'm saying, drown nobody completely in the conversation, but try to break it down in a respectable way. What happens to the children in these dynamics?
I mean, just, years of, and I'm not of course, I'm not biracial. I have a good friend of mine that's German and Black. But just the, the fitting in aspect of it, and then, nobody talks about, well, people do talk about it to a degree, how the other side of the family treats you. My man, he talks a lot about how he was treated because, he was light skinned with curly hair, and, his dad was, dark skinned dude from Chicago, and how he was treated in that regard. But just the fitting in aspect, because you know how it goes. You're not Black enough for the Black side, you're not white enough for the white side. So you have to struggle with that. And that's what a lot of people that are biracial say that. The only positive aspect of it nowadays is you have a lot of enclaves and little havens or little pockets where it's a community of interracial babies or interracial families. So you do have a lot of areas now in the United States where a lot of interracial couples basically live, where they're not the only person out there. So the child can somewhat find their place, in the world. But as far as the things that I see and the things that I know that people are biracial, they go through. I mean, even, and like Dr. Wilson used to talk about, it depends on who was Black and who was white. Because if your mother was white and she's nurturing you,
right,
it's kind of hard to look at white people as the enemy.
Yeah.
When the person that nurtured you was white.
Yeah.
So that's the dynamic of it as well. And I've seen that happen actually in the lecture where Sister kind of had a rebuttal to what Dr. Wilson was talking about. And she asked her, which one of your parents are white? She said, my mother. And because when your father's white, you can see, even though that's your father, you can tell he's still in it. You know what I mean? But when your mother's white, it's like, well, she breastfed me. She loves me.
Yeah.
She can't be the enemy. So those are some of the dynamics.
Yeah. And I want to say this, and this goes back to my initial answer. We're not ready. And when I say we as a Black community is not ready, and America damn sure ain't ready to talk about the truth about these things. We skip over.
That's right.
Several centuries of pain, anger, devilish acts.
Confusion.
About it. We don't talk about lynchings. We don't talk about the burning down of Black communities over and over again. We don't talk about the horrors of slavery. We don't talk about the oppression that we have gone through up until right now. We still have all types of horrific oppressions going on that we don't hear about in the news. And so because we don't talk about it, because we gloss over it, we make it an isolated incident until recently technology has shown that it's not. This is actually the norm. We don't prepare our children for these things. And when you have a child that is born into a biracial family, interracial family, and I have quite a few nephews and nieces that are in that circumstance. I'm talking a lot, all right, and cousins and stuff. They grow up confused as well. And because if you can't be with their partner, your spouse, husband and wife, whatever the race there is, and don't talk about the truth about these things, then you're setting your children up to go out there confused and not ready to deal with this reality of this world. And that goes back to what I was saying about the sister when I was down in Dallas. Her son was angry, and she had never seen him like this before until this whole thing. When Tamir Rice was killed, he was around his age. And that's why he's like, I can't understand this. And then all he started putting the pieces together. He said, one thing I'm seeing is black men, black boys being killed by white police, white men. These white men look like my dad, and they're killing little boys like me. And so he got angry, said, why did you have to marry a white man? Because he was so confused.
Yeah.
Now, so that's the reason why it becomes a problem, because we're not preparing. We're not really ready to talk about this honesty, honestly, and the two partners aren't openly really talking about it for the most part. It's kind of like, oh, love is love. Let's forget about racism. Let's forget about the dominance of white supremacy for the last 5 centuries. Let's forget about all the different people that they've colonized and the extinction of the Aborigines and all these other people and the Native Americans and the horrific acts of slavery. And slavery is so ugly and horrific that most of us really just don't even have a clue to what actually happened. So we look at it as a root situation, and oh, that was then. We don't talk about, the mating of making a son has sex with his mother to create an offspring, all for profit, to making other blacks beat each other till you saw the white meat, or all the different things, making blacks turn each other in and then creating all this distrust and meritorious manumission and everything that leads to what we have today. We don't talk about those things in realistic terms. And that's why even with Michelle Alexander and the new Jim Crow, she wasn't even ready when the young black man kept telling her he was set up. And she was, thinking, oh, I'm a lawyer and this and that and everything, until she actually saw what happened, and that blew her mind. And I'm like, well, how is this blowing your mind in modern day in the 2000s? But this is just, this is where we at. We're still not ready. Therefore, we're not strong enough. We're not strong enough to have our children coming to this, and we're not strong enough as a community to be engaged in these type of relationships. And I'm not against it wholesale. In the eyes of Allah, we're all human beings, but we got to be honest about it. Black people are not strong enough for this right now.
As long as the system of white supremacy, the illusion of white supremacy exists, it will never be a good time. When we talk about this, we talk about it within the context of slavery happening to us. But these people have been who they are before American chattel slavery. The history is there. The history tells us that something is different about them. Now, am I going to try to say exactly what it is?
Right.
No, I'm not gonna do that here. But that if I was to even answer the question, I'm just like, I can't align myself with that. I can't align myself with that. And then go and mix my creative energy to bring a child into that. There's a disalignment there, and not because of slavery, not just that, because the idea of white supremacy, there are places who didn't have chattel slavery where the illusion of white supremacy still exists. And people who look like you and I are still being oppressed in those areas. It's a global lie. Right? And before there was chattel slavery, there was still the white man's greed and lust for domination and power. And as long as that exists, I cannot educate my sons that, you know what, we all bleed the same. I can't do that, because that would be to their own detriment and the generations to come. Because we don't know when this thing is going to be undone. Because we're sitting and we're waiting for it to happen. And I think the only way for it to be undone is for us to undo it. Right. We want to fight violence with peace.
That's right.
We want to fight aggression with singing Kumbaya.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? We want to fight their war cry with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that ain't doing anything for us. So as long as that illusion exists, and that's why it was like, when is it a good time? These people been this way before chattel slavery in the Americas. Yes. It is the reason why there is a chattel slavery in the Americas, period. So if I was to chime in, that would kind of be my thing, like, no, at the end of the day, everything that they've done, you go to places like Brazil and you understand the history Okay, some places in the Caribbean, Jamaica, where they try to breed out.
Yes.
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 Another good point.
And the reason for that is still connected to power and domination. Every move they make is connected to that. This is why allyship is so tricky in this country.
Yeah.
Because until you're ready to lay your body on the line for Black bodies, and until you're ready to surrender some of your privilege, we can't talk allyship. Because there's the other side of that too, where people say there are people who are allies that, okay, can't you marry an ally? And even that, I'm like, So I just kind of wanted to inject that into the conversation, because I don't want someone listening be like, yeah, well, if it didn't have slavery, like, you know, no, slavery exists because of who these people are.
Yeah.
Shay, and the fact that we are so ready and willing to mix with them, the same people that you just described, Hanifa, says something about our psychosis that we have not been comfortable yet enough to tap into about ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay, when we start thinking about ourselves and what we're doing here and the excuses we're making here and the determination here to mix and mingle with these type of people, what is that saying about your own mind? Why do you want to be so closely linked and connected with the type of people that can do these type of behaviors all over the world, cause this type of destruction all over the world? And let me go, and I see you, you know, I feel your passion through the stream, but I'm gonna let you say, but I want to come back to my sister said something about Allah, and what's been on my mind, honey, for what I shared with you before the show about how comfortable I see our sisters being with our brothers in interracial relationships. I want to go into that a little bit. And I understand,
like our sisters accepting our brothers going, okay.
Yeah, just not just accepting, but giving the blessings. They go to the wedding and throw the rice. You know, yay! There's another one of our Black brothers marrying a white man, white woman.
White woman.
And yay, okay, good for them. They should be able to love whoever they want, and all the other things that we say. And then these same women go home to a lonely bed. And they in their house lonely and wishing and desiring a Black man for themselves, but they're so comfortable with handing over their brothers on a platter graciously to other people. Now, I know we can't tell nobody what to do. I can't force a Black man to be with another Black woman. I get that. But my point is being so accepting of this interracial thing. And when you suffering over here yourself. So it's like the white woman can say, okay, I got my man and I can pick from yours too. I could pick from your pool too if I want to. And you're like, okay, yes, ma'am, you sure can. And I'll just sit over here by myself and just pray to God that maybe one day I'll find myself a Black man to love me too. Something about that don't sit well. The balance in that is off to me. That you can be so comfortable with seeing your brothers out there doing their thing like that, and you lonely as hell, looking for a good Black man yourself. I can't force them to do that, but I'm not gonna make it comfortable for you. I'm not gonna give you my blessing, and I really need you here at home. You know, you done went on over and crossed on over the railroad tracks and left your home in shambles, and I'm good with that. Okay, yeah, we need you to baby hungry over here and cry for his daddy, but you done went on over there, but that's okay. Go on over there. That's good that y'all found love. No, I don't think we should be just so accepting of that. But anyway, I'm gonna get off my soapbox there.
I ain't lying. You went in on that one, but nah.
That's just a passion of mine.
It's been heavy on her heart, Demetrius.
Yeah, it has been.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna just say that, you know, it could be a thing where, you know, the sister saying, you know, hey, when I make this move, I don't want nobody to say, you know, anything about when I make the move for marrying me a white man, you know. So that could be it. Honestly, outside of that, I don't know. I mean, I've always felt like I never understood how Black women can hang out with homosexual men in the way that they do, when a lot of, you know, these men are possibly sleeping with men that's on the down low. You know what I mean? I feel to a degree that you condone that in a way. You know, and I'm not, you know, whatever your choice is of who you want to date for us, that's cool or whatever, that's your business. But when I see that, I kind of question the same way. You know, if you know that you hanging out with somebody that is kind of perpetuating the whole down low thing, why would you? And you know that that's what they're doing. That's kind of how I feel about for the sisters that are condoning and going to weddings where a Black man is marrying a white. Let's
bear in mind that there's let's just bear in mind that there's some of us that really just don't care about any of this.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, like there are some of us that just like marry who you want, be with who you want. Like there's that demographic, there's that group of people, Black people, who it ain't even about like what, like I agree, Demetrius, to a certain extent, yes, that exists. But then there's also some of us where it's like, okay, I'm happy if you're happy. You get what I'm trying to say? That don't have anything to do with Black consciousness, knowledge of self, history. Like they don't care about that.
Right. No self-identity. And that would be fine too if we weren't in this
situation.
Right. That would be fine. But look at the predicament we're in. You can't say that in good conscience. And then, you know what I'm saying? You in a war zone. And, you know, it don't make logical sense.
Another aspect of it too, and me and Jamal used to talk about this, I don't know if you remember, but you have the corny Black people, you know, who is considered corny. The skater, the gothic guy, punk rocker, that's into that. And a lot of sisters are not into that. You're going to mainly find white women that's into that. And you have some sisters that's into it too. But it's never where, you know, the numbers are not where a brother could find a Black girl that's into punk rock unless he goes to like the Afro punk thing up in Brooklyn every year. You know what I'm saying? So they never really find each other in a sense. It's always you was, you know, in a school where you was like probably the only, you know, Black kid that was into that. So you ended up hanging out with a lot of white kids. And you kind of find yourself dating white women. And I know because one of my little guys that I got under my wing, he from Delaware. And I remember him saying, you know, Black girls don't like it. And he's into bouldering, mountain climbing, skateboarding, you know, the way he wears his clothes. I mean, his grandmother was like, yeah, just buy whatever you want. When he graduated, he bought like some $10 shoes and a $5 shirt, you know, and he could have bought anything. But that's just his thing. You know what I mean? So his style doesn't even really attract, you know, the average Black man. So you have that element too when it comes to the interracial dating. And sad as it sounds, and even contradictory to what I've said, I understand. Those situations, I'd be like, damn, I kind of get it. You know what I mean? And on both sides, even with a Black woman deciding to, if she's really into that lifestyle, not being able to find another Black dude that's in it. And I give my little guy the blues. I give him the blues about his little white girlfriend, because I don't want to get into like her family background. But I tell him, I'm like, now your family has well off money and, you know what I'm saying, baby boomers and all that. But this white woman, drug addict, I'm like, it would have never been the Rose. Rose would never been, it would never been a white woman that came from a middle class, well-to-do background, messing with a Black dude that his mama on drugs, or, you know, everybody cracked out. It's baffling.
You're talking about the Candace Owens of our community. That's who you're talking about. You're talking about a lot of our, because we tend to approach Blackness in such a monolithic way, it does not create space for those type of Black people that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to be clear on that. I'm talking about
That's
the
true.
extremely intelligent ones.
Absolutely.
Okay, what we would describe as goofy.
Yep.
Okay, they're not into hip hop.
Nope.
Okay, they're not into wearing their clothes a certain way. Like
Yep.
there are black, we say we're not monolithic a lot, but we don't create safe spaces for people who are actually not monolithic. And what ends up happening is they find open arms in this community. They embrace, and that is their reality. And we be like, oh, that can't be it. No, it is it.
And it is
Because
it.
you'd be told, some of these brothers, I was in a meeting at Everlasting Life. The brother spoke up and said the same exact thing you're saying this young brother is saying. And we nearly chewed his head off. But that is his reality. It's that, look, the sisters don't want me. Because the type of energy I'm giving off is not black enough for them. And
Yep.
that's something that we have to unpack in our community too. Because some of our most brilliant minds
Yeah.
are walking away from the community because there's no safe space for them. These
That's
are the
really
children
smart.
that your nephews and stuff are messing with and bullying in school.
Yep.
These are the little girls that your uncle didn't want when he was in junior high school because she had the real big glasses with the thick lenses that made her eyes look real tiny.
Yep.
No, like this.
Nah. Speak your truth.
Can-
Go let it out. Let it out. Let it out.
Go ahead, Jamal.
so but here's the thing about that. You're both right, but those are still
Small.
reactions.
Oh, minority.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
those are still reactions to white supremacy.
Absolutely.
And this is why I say we're not ready, because we don't address those type of things. What Demetrius just described is the majority of my brothers, all my siblings.
Let it out.
Somebody got feedback.
Go ahead, Jamal. Oh, that's me. Sorry.
Yeah. All the siblings, my younger siblings, the males have all said that, because the household I grew up in, after my brother right underneath me, the rest of my siblings were homeschooled, and my parents took them out the white institutions because of white supremacy. And my father's like, no, I'm not going to let that happen to the rest of these children. When we were able to financially do that, we did it. But because of that, they started going to art museums. They like listening to classical music. They like doing things that were non-traditional, stereotypical black things. They didn't dress a certain way. You know, they like rap, but they also liked theme music for scores for movies. Okay. And so I sat there and watched my younger brothers, all of them have difficulty in dating black women. But that's a product of what white supremacy has done, because it taught those black women to only like a certain type of black man if he wasn't thug enough, you know, because that was what was promoted on us back in the 80s and the 90s, to be gangster, to be thug, to be hard. If he wasn't doing that, if he didn't have a certain swag about him, he probably wasn't good in the bed. He probably couldn't fight. All these different things that our black women have been taught by white media. We have to keep putting it in proper context, because what we do as black people is we point the finger at each other instead of looking at who was the actual instigator and the architect of this poison that we've ingested. White media has taught black men to act a certain way, and it's taught black women to accept and subscribe to black men acting a certain way, and vice versa. And that's the problem with this whole situation, and why I say it's not good for us in this whole interracial thing. And as far as a community, it's because we have not addressed all of these issues. That's a symptom of white supremacy. You know, it's just like, you know, it's a symptom of white supremacy for black men, or young black men especially, to hate each other, to not trust each other, because that's all they've been taught. You know, when we look at videos, as much, I'm a DJ, I love rap music. But let's be honest about it. Rap music was weaponized to condition young black people in particular to hate each other. The record industry, the music industry, still to this day gives record deals to young black men. They don't give it to black men and black women in their 30s. They make sure they get them in their teens or early 20s.
Very true.
And then they get them to play whatever music that they want.
Impressionable.
And that's the important part about
Yeah.
it. So they tell them what to do and they go ahead and they do it. And then that message gets conveyed over and over and over again. Irritated Genie talked about in his documentary, Genocide. You know, you take a Little Wayne and he can sit there and make a song about killing black men, and then that becomes a #1 hit. That song, that message is being transferred out there on the airways millions of times, and it doesn't affect other races the way it affects us because we identify with that as being real. White folks can listen to it and say, oh, you know, that's just music, that's fictional. We were like, nah, that's the streets, that's how we are, that's what we do. Just like us eating soul food. Okay, we eat the food that they told us we're supposed to eat, and then we say that's what is black, even though it's killing us.
Yes.
So we are being socialized by white supremacy, and that's the problem. Is we don't identify it. We get reactionary instead of responsive to what is happening to us because we're not paying attention to it and the filter of a system as a whole. Every single thing that happens to us.
Ashe.
And a little deeper to your point about that music thing, how messages are so subliminal and subconsciously ingrained in us, but we don't even understand.
No,
we won't understand until we start studying ourselves. And I thought about, like, the other day, how the last song I heard, and we all can vouch for this, the last song I heard on the radio, I'm singing it for the next 10, 15 minutes. The radio turned off. I'm in a whole nother
still in your head.
I'm not even in my car no more, and I'm still singing it.
Still
and I'm
singing
thinking
it.
to myself, damn, that shit's still in my head.
Yeah.
Now imagine our young folks with their headphones on,
Yes.
over and over
Over
again,
and over.
hearing bitches ain't shit.
Yes.
You a nigga.
Kill a
I'ma
nigga.
kill you and pop these mollies and
Got thought over there.
yeah, thought.
All of that.
Imagine all that in your ear all day, them little youngins, and what
Telling
that
each
does
other
to
that.
them, you know?
Telling each other
Brother
constantly,
Jamal.
24/7.
Brother Jamal, to just to speak to what you was here, I completely agree. I think that what happens is what I was trying to get to is that when certain individuals bring up their reality, instead of us using this as an opportunity to point out the different ways in which
Right.
you understand what I'm saying? We
Yes.
dismiss those things and say, no, you just want to do whatever. But no, that is their reality. And it's important that we use those as teaching moments to help them connect the dots. But instead, we're very dismissive when those people begin, and we're dismissive because they're a small percentage. But the reality is that these are still people that have impact in the community. Period.
And to give an example of that, what's the brother? He's on TV all the time. He's he talks about space and stuff all the time. Y'all remember who?
The black brother.
His mind.
Tyson?
Yeah.
See?
No. Who? No.
Nah.
They talking about space.
He's
The
talking about
science, the
astrology and
scientist.
space and things like that all the time. Brilliant brother.
Oh man.
It's not coming to me. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Not
too.
Michael Eric Dyson?
No.
He's a scientist.
He's an astrologist and scientist.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Let me pull it up.
Oh
Go
God,
ahead.
it's driving me nuts. And it's important because he is a perfect example of what we're talking about. Oh goodness, he's got the mustache.
Yeah,
See, my
I'll
sister
pull it up
hadn't
for
even know
you.
exactly who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because he even has his own show on Netflix.
Yep. Okay, I'll pull it up.
Well, share with us what you mean, though.
Yeah, go
So-
ahead.
So the point is, I watched
Neil deGrasse.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. That's it.
Yeah.
All right, Neil deGrasse Tyson, perfect example. I love seeing brilliant black minds. He does not fit the stereotype of what we typically look at as an everyday black person, hood, or whatever you want to call it. I love the way he talks. I love this. I love how intelligent he is. Okay. Now, one night, and Demetrius knows the sister who I'm talking about. This is a sister I used to date several years ago. He was on TV when I came home, and like I said, I love hearing him talk. He was breaking down, our DNA, and he was talking about, the separation between us and a monkey, and how little bit of the DNA is, but how big the separation is. Brilliant mind. The sister that I was with, she started laughing, and I was like, "What's so funny?" She goes, "He's so corny." And I said, "What's corny about him?" I don't know. He just looks funny and he talks funny. And I was like, this is one of the most brilliant minds in that field. Like, he dominates that field. And
Yes,
you're
he
laughing
does.
at him. And then you wonder why somebody like him is with a white woman. Okay. And I'm not making excuses. I'm saying this is the response that a lot of brothers and sisters who are intelligent like that, that go against the grain of what we call stereotypical black people. This is what they encounter. And I know for a fact that this is the case because I've interviewed countless brothers and sisters who have told me, but especially black men, because black men have been hyper masculinized, if that's the correct word. And they have to be, all have to be able to fight. They all have to have swag with them. You know, Demetrius can tell you many times in my show, in the audience, when we ask a sister, what do they want? I need a man who's got swag. I got tired of that, you know. And it's like, what is swag? You know, what do you mean? You know, and then, you know, I don't want nobody who's goofy and everything. He's got to have some, you know, some swag about him, and I need to feel protected. I'm like, so if he don't act like like a thug, or if he don't, you know, act like, you know, some basketball athlete or something like that, you don't feel protected by him. He could be a 8-degree black belt, trained in war and everything, but because he acts like Neil deGrasse Tyson, in your mind, he's not a protector, because white supremacy has told you that the real fighter is the one that they describe. You know,
and a lot of times those fighters can't really fight.
Exactly.
The nerds are usually the ones that actually went to the black belt, you know, went through karate or type of self-defense. They was the ones that actually did it. You know what I mean? The black dude, a lot of times, he street fighting, one-handed fighting, at best. But the corny guy, because his people probably had him, you know, involved with different activities and things like that.
Or he was smart enough.
You know, he know how to fight.
And to say also to get on that, to understand there are sisters who are made fun of by their own black women because they do like that type of guy, like a Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Thank you.
They are made fun of. I know sisters that are like, they like what we call the nerdy type or the smart, intelligent type. And they're like, oh, you know, you like him? He probably got a little dick. You know, this is the stuff that they would say to him. I mean, this is 100%. So this is the thing that we have been socialized by somebody else.
Amongst themselves. They talk like that. I mean, if we're going to be honest, yes, these are conversations that are being had amongst sisters sometimes, yes. And I can't argue with that. So it sounds like what we're saying in reference to the topic that we're discussing, it sounds like this topic, it can't be addressed without us addressing our own internal issues with each other.
Yes.
Right? And connecting it back, understanding the source from which it comes. Yes. Right? Yes. So that we don't be trying to chop each other heads off. I actually think when a black man and a black woman trying to do relationship with the understanding that there's a common enemy, that relationship looks different. The purpose of it looks different. The mission of it looks different. Absolutely. But when you go in there trying to acquire this type of love that you've been told since you were a little bitty little girl and a little bitty little boy on television, right? Yeah. If you go in there for that sole purpose of somebody compensating for what your mama or your daddy didn't do, our relationships aren't going to work. They have to be mission driven. They have to have a purpose with the understanding in mind that we are now in a space dominated by someone who is our enemy, who has no love for us.
Yeah.
It doesn't have our best interests at hand.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think what will help us better understand what we're dealing with is getting the historical relevance of what we're dealing with. So it's like, you know, I always like to go back to, well, when, so what were we doing when our relationships were more healthier? You know, what has changed? What is different now than what was happening prior to, where we could boast on being a more healthy union? And so let's go back there and get some of those lessons, you know, that Sankofa, you know, we've Sankofa the journey where you go back and fetch history and bring it forth to the current day, and you benefit from all that information and learn from those things.
Right.
You know, our ancestors gave us a lot of quality and valuable things that we can be currently implementing today to make our lives more healthy and wholesome. But we got to go and fetch it. We got to go back and fetch it. And people will say things like, oh, you living in the past and all that, you forget about that. This is now, that was then. No, you don't understand how important the linear is, the time linear is to our current day, our modern day. So we got to get that information because it's valuable. It's valuable information.
And I think that the sisters have to, sisters and brothers, but I'm kind of saying we don't speak on the brothers, force men, or I'm not even gonna say force men, but men have to do it themselves too, to look more so at a man's character. Force, you know, a man has to, we gotta stop, we gotta put the money thing to the side, because the money, we don't have access to the money thing.
We don't control it.
We can't judge each other with that money thing for real, because, and even if we do, that's delusion. So if women and men, but I'm saying women in particular, really force men or look at men's character, because if you put that money to the side and look at a man's character and it's not right, put the side that he can provide, or that you may want a child at a particular time. Really look at his character and judge him based on that. Which, if you really start looking at men's character and judging men based on that, he's going to have to step in. You understand what I'm saying? Because we can get away with our characters being flawed, which our characters are flawed, but because we can dress it up so well nowadays and get away with it, you know what I'm saying? And not really, we are held accountable by the sisters, but not the way I think that women should hold us accountable. You know what I'm saying?
So Demetrius, do you say one of the most powerful things years ago on my show that has stuck with me to this day? And when we were talking about Black love, and we were talking about what do the standards and what do Black women want out of Black men, and what were their expectations? And you said you always heard, oh, I want a man who is, you know, faithful, a man who is, you know, who can take care of himself and provide, that can be a good father, husband, you know, or a man who is funny. You always hear that, you know, and I understand that, you know, or a man who is intelligent. And you said, I have yet to hear one sister say, I want a Black man who's going to fix our problems in our community.
Yeah.
And that was deep, because I was like, damn, we haven't heard that. And that goes to once again, what we've been socialized and told to about love. They tell us what we want, and then we go by their definition of love versus what it should be in the reality of what we are. I want a Black woman who's going to support me in this bunker as a war mate. Okay, who's got my back and I got her back. That's what I want. I'm faithful to the Black woman. I can't be with nobody else because we need each other. She needs me and I need her. Okay, I'm faithful to the Black community. And that's what I want, a sister who thinks the same way as well, which is why we cannot, it's not healthy for us as a community, once again, communal wise, not individually, to be dating outside of our race right now until we can get on the same page, because we're going to sit there and create offspring that are confused as hell about what is happening to them and don't understand why, you know, they got all this education, you know, they do everything they say to do, and yet the police still pull them over. You know, why a Black girl goes to school, she's beautiful, smart, intelligent, everything, but because her hair is natural, she gets put into, you know, detention or whatever it is and everything. And she's sitting there confused and hurt and everything because mom and dad didn't address that with her. They didn't tell her that her natural beauty is a threat to white supremacy. You know, when we don't talk about those things on a daily basis as a community as a whole, that should be common language and common conversation. We set our children up for failure. But when you're sitting there trying to make sure you don't hurt your partner's feelings, trying to avoid the racial conversations and the reality of it, this is what happens.
And I
Because you're
heard
too busy trying to, you know, not hurt each other's feelings. And I've heard sisters tell me they've been with white guys, and this was recently. A sister said that the man that she was with, I think it was her husband, said, "We got to talk about race all the time," and she was like blown, because she was like, I'm black all the time.
Absolutely.
Come on, T. I heard Imhotep, and I know Demetrius, you got to get out of here real soon. I heard Brother Imhotep up in Baltimore, the lead organizer of the Pan African Liberation Movement, on this one time when he said that what we do is we try to coddle our children. We try to protect them from all the evils and ills of society as it relates to our Blackism. And so what we do is we don't tell them all the ugly sides of what we have to endure as being Black people in America. And so when they get out there and they confronted with these type of realities, it's like, oh my God, like you said, Jamal, it's like, oh my God, you're so shocked. Oh my God, they did this. Oh my God, how can they do such a thing? Because we did not prepare our children for the harsh realities. So he was saying, we got to tell our children the truth.
Yeah.
It's our duty as our responsibility as parents, as they're rearing them, to tell them the brutal truth, the honest truth about what they can expect in this society. And that way they're armed with that truth.
That's right.
Yeah, so he was that was some good information he gave me. He said, stop trying to coddle and protect their hearts. He said, it's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to tell them the truth,
to prepare them.
And how they respond and react is how they respond and react to that truth.
Right. And understanding that they don't view our children as children in that sense.
Yes.
Had that situation with that little girl with those officers.
Yes.
That mother clearly, that mother is who called the police. Let's be clear on that. Okay. The girl was having an episode. The mother is called the police. Understanding that your children are not going to be viewed as children.
That's right.
Okay. They've gunned down a 12-year-old for having a fake gun.
That's right. On a playground.
Right. We need to understand that. You know what I'm saying? So because they don't view your children as children, our children's what the European call adolescents, okay? And we've taken that on as adolescents, right? They don't see our children are grown. When they talk about things that happen in the news, listen to the way they describe our young children. They don't even consider them they don't even say, well, this is a teenager. You get what I'm saying? The young man. And I'm like, no, he was 17. He was 16 years old. So being conscious of that will also help you know that, hey, I have to start to prepare this child.
Yeah.
Because it is dangerous to send your child out into a war zone without the understanding that there is a war.
Yes.
Right.
You sending your child outside, like it's like planes are dropping bombs outside, just to give an understanding. And you're like, oh yeah, just go to the grocery store, and you don't talk to your child about the fact that there's bombs being dropped outside. Outside.
Everything.
That is a part of our job, and this is why I'm so tough on our sisters, right? Like we're talking about, like right now, there's a lot of dialogue, and I'm for this. Tapping into our femininity, but we don't have enough time to talk about this. But that's also rooted in the whole white supremacy. It is also rooted in the overcompensation of the masculine because of the breakdown of our homes. So there's a lot of conversation being had right now about women tapping into their feminine and all of this type of stuff. And my thing is this: I could embrace my feminine and still hold on to my machete. And still have my gun in my waist. And still hold on to my feminine. But I actually feel like there's an unarming of that warrior spirit in our woman that's taking place. I'm watching it. And that's because I'm very intuitive as well. But I'm watching it happening. And I'm like, I'm all for femininity. But you all have the wrong idea of femininity. You guys' idea of the feminine is even colonized.
Yes.
You know, you have brothers that say your hair outcome is masculine, long flowy hair is feminine. So what does that do to us as Black women who hair don't blow the wind like that?
Right.
So now
Yes.
you're telling me and the little girls that we're not feminine. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
So we need to start redefining what femininity look like. Queen Nzinga warring for her people didn't make her less feminine. It didn't make her no less of a woman.
Come on.
So this idea that, oh, black woman do it being like this and Harry, because I have a lot of fire and having that fire, what you're not going to do is defy my fire as masculine. No, because the feminine has power as well. So
Absolutely.
this idea that we have to, this is, and I say that to say, this is why I'm hard on the sisters, because we have a responsibility as teachers to our children. We cannot cuddle them and not talk to them about these things.
Yes.
You talking to them from a point of view that's idealistic. It is not realistic.
Right.
You speaking to them of your dream from a place of dreaming. It is
Yes.
not reality. And so my thing is like, we have to know our history as women. We have to know ourselves as women. We have to honor and respect the black masculine as women, because we are our children first teachers, and we are our children first gods.
Yes.
Right.
That is important. So when we say, I'm just like, come on now, this is why I'm hard. Like we are the ones that are teaching. And I actually think a big part of it is that a lot of us lack, and I'm speaking as a woman, and this is not caping for our men. I love black women. I'm a black woman. I love sisterhood. But we need to be held accountable, man.
Yes.
We need to be held accountable. We have a major role that
Yes.
we are trying to downplay. In this situation, we are trying to downplay it.
Yeah.
And it's not working.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of responsibility as well, just because of how our children look at us and look up to us. Our communities are matriarchal right now,
Yes.
but we still talking about what the black men.
Power.
Yo.
Yeah, Abdullah, I got to get out of here.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so I was going to say again, I'm glad that y'all brought me on. Me and Jamal been rocking and talking about
Man.
this for a long, long time.
Oh.
And just to how Nifa was saying, it's both of our responsibilities.
Yeah.
It's 50-50, you know what I mean? And yeah, sisters, they put most of it on us, no doubt about it. So I appreciate what I say what Hanifa was saying. I appreciate, what Hanifa was saying. Again, I appreciate that y'all rock with me. And I say that because I know, it's kind of light today, but I know other conversations I've had, things I say are not too light. And y'all still bring me on. So, I appreciate that.
Oh yeah.
And anytime, you already know, anytime you need me on, I'm one phone call away.
We do use you too. We do pull up that phone Rolodex and dial that number.
And I put this on because for those who don't know, Alclamar made this piece right here.
Shout out to Malik's Fashion.
Yeah.
Look.
Nice little
Wow,
piece.
you got
I rock it just like it's a gold chain. You know what I'm saying? So, when I hire it out, people they'll look away like it's a very intimidating piece when you wear it out. And I wear it, so.
That's that warrior piece.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you always supporting my business too.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm gonna get out of here.
All right, bro.
All right. Peace and blessings, beloved.
Peace.
So, can I say that to respond to Sister Hanifa, I've been huge on addressing the fact that white supremacy has been teaching modern day Black women to not hold themselves accountable. And it is hurting us as a community because of exactly what Sister Hanifa said. Our children, their first encounter with earth is through the mother. They're the nurturer. They're the one that brings them up. That is the light to our children when they see is the mother, okay? And we can't do this by ourselves, one or the other. It can't be. So we both have to be held accountable. But the new trend, sisters, is to blame everything on the Black man. And there is a lot of blame that that needs to be dished out to the Black man, but there's also a lot of blame that needs to be dished out to the Black woman, and it needs to all be constructive. But it needs to be addressed, and you cannot sit there and blame every single thing on a Black man.
Right.
Some things we don't control. Some things are beyond our reach, plain and simple. But that has been the new trend. I have so much documentation that I've been collecting, viewing and surfing social media of this new thing out there to totally diss Black men for everything, to the point where it's actually becoming dangerous. It's becoming dangerous because it is feeding to young Black women that nothing that they do is wrong. None of this. If they make a bad decision on a guy, if they go and mess with a guy that they know is a drug dealer and that is a womanizer and an abuser and everything, and then he does to them what he did to the others, they'll blame him solely. That's dangerous, because what are you teaching our children? That they can't hold themselves accountable and nobody else can hold themselves accountable. And with that, that means that you can't be communal. Because in order to have a communal mindset, you got to think, how do I affect the community with my own actions? If I'm out there doing things like, robbing and stealing or doing things that hurt the image of our community, and I get caught and I'm on the news, that affects everyone. But if I sit there and say, ain't my fault, like the song says, it ain't my fault constantly, then we don't have any growth. So that's not a communal way of thinking, but that is a new thing that's been happening. It's a new wave happening. There's a sister posted on Instagram this post, and she used to come to my Love Lounge all the time. It was a picture. You've seen the picture recently, back in December, where Barack and Michelle Obama were canoeing or whatever in the water. And in the picture, they both have their paddles, but Barack is behind Michelle, because the strongest person when you're doing kayaking or canoeing is supposed to be in the back. And the lesser stronger person physically is more so doing the guiding, and everything.
Right.
But in the picture, Michelle was struggling. Okay. And we don't know what the picture is, but behind, Barack is smiling while he's paddling as well. But Michelle was struggling. And a lot of Black women said, see, Black women got to do everything. And I said, well, goddamn, y'all use this picture to trash the Black man? I'm not a Barack Obama fan, but how much more can a Black man do than become the president of this white supremacist system and be married to a Black woman and have 2 Black daughters that he's a great father to, and you going to throw him under the bus too because of this picture? I was like, that's all too convenient, sisters. And so on the picture, she wrote, as usual, we got to handle everything. It was something to that effect. And I was like, sis, really? And she was, and so she caught a lot of flack from a lot of brothers, but some sisters too, thank goodness. And she said, well, let me rephrase this, and then she started listing all the things that Black women do. And I said, sis, I support you, and I'm 1000% behind the Black woman and her actions and her fight. But you just made it look like y'all do everything and we don't do anything. So you just fell into the hands of that feminist umbrella that y'all were just talking about right there. And it's like, I would never do something that would be the opposite of that, to make it look like only Black men are handling everything.
Right.
That would be ridiculous.
That's because you have a better sense of understanding of the whole holistic,
right? Yeah,
and where a lot of us don't. And you said what you said that was very powerful. What that it's becoming dangerous.
Yeah,
what we do to each other, and I agree. It is, because it's no more communication involved. It's a tearing
yes
apart. It's a tearing apart. Anytime anybody tries to make some constructive criticism that I witness online about the opposite sex, there's a tearing apart that goes on.
Yes.
And that's dangerous, because we're no longer, we're not doing this. We are ripping at each other's throats.
It's toxic.
And we're getting further and further and further.
And that's what I said at the beginning, is that we're getting further and further divided. That's why this whole interracial thing, it is not a good time. Not that it has ever been since since, you know, colonization by white men. But right now, it is not a good time because we are getting further and further divided. I've even had conversations that were, I would say, disturbing with my own family members. And there's this new push to blame everything on the black man and then make it like the black woman is doing everything. And come on, sis, y'all doing a whole lot. Yes, indeed. But you're not the only ones doing it, and you're not the only ones that have done it. But I'm talking about with younger black women getting on this white man ship, you know, because you got the George Soros out the world that are funding the feminist movement of black women and that are funding this leave the black man aside and we're gonna handle y'all because y'all the ones that's doing everything. And it's like, yo, you can't do one without the other. That's you know, but I've had these conversations with black women that I love, that I would die for, that I have fought for, and then they sit there and accuse me because I don't agree with them. And this goes back to what you're saying now, Kamar, of hating women. I was like, nah, come on, I fought for you. I put my life on the line for you now, and because I don't agree with what you just said, now you're throwing me under the bus too. We have got to stop doing that to each other. You know, in the 90s, the campaign was to make black men denounce and trounce on black women through hip hop, through movies, to relegate the black woman to just a sexual object.
Yeah.
You know, to a bitch and a hoe. And now the new thing is to do the opposite, you know, to black men, to make them worthless.
Yeah, we're feeding into the narrative, and we don't even.
We are feeding into it.
We don't realize what we're doing to ourselves by tuning in so much to this diabolical enemy of ours that a lot of us don't even believe we have.
Everything that we receive, every single thing that we receive from outside of our community, whether it's from the media or voices that are non-black, needs to be filtered through the screen of white supremacy. Every single thing, because we need to say, why would you give me anything? And there's great intentions from some people. You know, I have people that I associate, even friends that are white. I don't have many white friends, but I have a few, and they are true to heart. But the only reason that I even associate with them, because I have filtered everything that they do for a long time. But we don't do that. We wholeheartedly open up our arms and accept their gifts. They're putting Trojan horses inside of our community left and right. And we're not filtering those things through the lenses of white supremacy.
Like all these commercials and all this other media stuff where you see all this interracial things going on. And you think
majority of black men are married to black women.
83%
black women are married to black men.
Yes.
So you have to ask, why are you guys trying to portray
exactly
the reality and the norm? What is the agenda here? You understand? You have to question that.
And to go on that, okay, and this is literally those numbers. That was one of the conversations I had with this individual, because the sister tried to tell me the majority of black men that make six figures are married outside of the race and mainly to white women. I said, that's completely not true. And I just sent her the stat of that, because it was a sister who did the research and showed that 83% of black men that make over $100,000 are married to black women.
Right, but we don't see that we don't see that narrative in their media, and you gotta ask yourself why. So why is it the vast majority of black men are married to black women? Vast majority, like 85%, the last I checked. Vast majority, but you don't see. But the vast majority of what you see on that media is mixed race couples.
Exactly.
We got to get more logical, and we got to get more critical in our thinking, and we got to remember we have an enemy. A powerful enemy out here. So anyway, I'm gonna
but that's exactly my point. So it's well, if the numbers show it, and then I said, if you do the eye test is so important. I said, like, if you don't go by your emotions, because when you turned on the television and you saw this wealthy black man with a white woman, then you got all upset. Don't go by that. Drive around. Pay attention when you're out in public. You will see the overwhelming majority of black men are with black women. The overwhelming majority of black women are with black men. So why is it on television right now? You cannot go 3 commercials without seeing a black woman with a white man right now. Me and my brother just talked about, you can't go 3 commercials right now without seeing it. Yet in reality, The overwhelming majority of Black women are with Black men.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know, so we have to question that. We have to filter that.
honey, we hadn't went to the stream at all. Was there any?
Yeah, there was a lot going on in the stream. I'm also looking at the time because I know I have to go.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a lot of commentary in the screen, but then my phone died where I was looking.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, if you
So
want,
family, we see you guys, and I please keep the conversation going. We done went 2 hours on the Empower Hour tonight.
good conversation. That's when you know the conversation is good.
Yeah, so I guess that we're gonna have to definitely do a part 2 to this. It
Yes.
looks
I'm
like,
down.
yeah, with some
'Cause
good
I
stuff.
have plenty of information on this.
Yeah, maybe we'll bring some sisters on as well.
Please do.
Yes.
Please do.
Thank you, family, so much for sharing the stream with all your sphere of influence. We appreciate all of you guys who tune in to us each and every week. Give us some topics. Yeah, this is our discussion. This is just not a me and Hanifa thing. This is a community platform. So we want to know what you guys want to talk about. So share with us, link up, let us know, you know what I'm saying, what's on your mind, hearts and minds, and so we can discuss on some future shows. Jamal, we so appreciate. I don't know how it took us so long to get you on this show. How did it take so long?
It's all good, you know. You know, the time is now.
Yeah.
You know?
Tell them a little bit about your show, where they can find more information about you.
So I have a show called The Love Lounge, hosted by myself, DJ One Love, and I do it every Tuesday. I've been doing it since 2006, but right now it's online because of COVID. Just like everybody else, it used to be in front of an actual audience at a Black-owned business every time. But now I do it online on a radio station called digitalanalogradio.com. That's digitalanalogradio.com every Tuesday from 8 to 10 p.m. is live. So you can catch me on there, and you can also catch me on Twitch TV. So it's twitch.tv/DJ ONELUV. My DJ One Love on Twitch if you want to see it as well. And anybody that wants to find out more about it, hit me up. Go to my website, The Love Lounge, and love is spelled LUV. So that's THELUVLOUNGE.com to find out more about it and become, you know, come check us out. We talk about a lot of the same things. I'm 1000% focused on the Black community. That's the whole purpose of the show. That's how I created it down on U Street at Bar None back in 2006 when I was DJing, and I took the second floor lounge area and said, we need to do more than just me playing music. Let me bring some brothers and sisters together so we can talk about what's happening with our community. And it's not just talk. It is carried on to actual action as well. So I don't just talk it, I walk it as well.
Yeah, Ashe. Hanifa, you want to add anything?
No, I just like I said, I agree there needs to be a part 2 to this. This tends to be a pretty emotional conversation. So I definitely want to bring in different perspectives the next go round as well. Definitely maybe some a sister or two, bringing Brother Jamal back. I think we can get a bigger panel going here. Because I think it's necessary. I think these are things that we think about individually as Black people. But I also think that we engage in these conversations in such a dishonest manner for the most part, and it's really time to like do away with that, because the holding back and the lack of transparency in these conversations is causing us to stay stagnated, and it's time for us to start growing up and growing forward.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, we have to be honest. We really have to be honest, and we need to be able to hear each other's honesty with grace and compassion.
Right. I love it. I appreciate that. Yeah, I agree with civility. Family, we're looking for the part 2 too. We would really like to bring on some folk who do date, who are Black, and you do date outside. You do date white.
Mm-hmm.
Open if you're open to that, and we promise you this is not a platform where people, we allow people to beat up on you,
right,
make you feel certain kind of way. No, our goal is to dig into the root of what we do, why we do it, and get your side of the story.
Yeah.
So we can better understand too. So if you are out there or you know somebody, family, who's watching, who dates outside of the Black race, we would really like to bring them on for part 2, men and women. So men and women, we're looking for people like that. So please help us spread the word. And if you're interested in coming on the platform, inbox us on the Empower Hour Talk Show. Inbox us and we'll take it from there. Okay, family, that is our show, our 2-hour show.
Yeah.
This week.
Okay.
Next week, we have Malik Zulu Shabazz coming on. Zulu Warrior. He's going to be talking about his latest book he just dropped, the Book of Khalid, which I'm hearing is a hot commodity right now. So stay tuned for that show next week, 8 p.m. All right, family, take care of each other out there. Peace.
Peace, sisters.
All right, thanks, Jamal.